How do you determine the list price for your home? Well, it's not about the price that you want to sell for. Rather, it's about how you want to attract the buyer. When I meet with my clients to talk about selling their home, I take them through 3 different list price strategies that communicate different messages to the market. The list price of your home is not the price that you want to sell for. It's about the strategy or the invitation to the buyers that will bring you the right offer. So let's get into it. The most common strategy that I see is when a home is priced high to leave room for negotiation. We all know this tactic. That is one strategy, and we call that aspirational pricing. In this situation, you price higher than the comparable sales. In a perfect world, you actually get that price, but you're leaving some room for negotiation, assuming that buyers will come in lower than the price you're asking. Now, the positive thing about this strategy is it gives you a bit of a safety net. If you don't get that high price, there's some room for negotiation, and you'll hopefully land around the number that you were aiming for the whole time. But there is a negative side to this strategy. It can deter buyers if you're priced too high. I've worked with many buyers that don't want to see a property because it's out of their price range, and they don't want to fall in love with something that they can't afford. Unbeknownst to them, you may actually be willing to sell for the price that they can afford, but it doesn't look like that on the MLS. Or your home never makes it into their portal because it's above their maximum price range. So while there's some safety built into this strategy, there's also some risk that you're not reaching the right audience. And when it's obvious that you're priced higher than comparable sales, you attract fewer potential buyers. Fewer potential buyers means fewer offers, and you just have a little bit less to work with. The second strategy that I advise my clients on is perceived market value pricing. This strategy is when you price in line with comparable sales, essentially pricing for the perceived value of the property. Now remember, there is no fair market price because that really just means what a buyer is willing to buy for and what a seller is willing to sell for. Perceived market value simply means that you're priced in line with most recent sales that are comparable to that property. This strategy will bring in traffic, and it's a good invitation for buyers. Downside though, there is not a lot of room for negotiation if you're hoping to sell at that perceived market value, and it's not an invitation that's going to attract a lot of buyers. It's not overly enticing. You may get one solid offer or possibly someone that wants to negotiate. So unless you have a buyer coming in with an offer right at that perceived market value number that you're hoping for, you'll likely land a little bit below that. Now, if you want to end up with the most money for your home, the third strategy is what I suggest to most of my clients. We call this event pricing, and this is where you price below relative sales in the area in hopes to attract multiple buyers. Even though it seems counterintuitive to price lower than what you actually want, in my experience, this has given my sellers the most money for their home. They've actually ended up higher than where they would have if they used perceived market value or aspirational pricing. For example, if your house is worth around $800,000 and you choose a list price of $850,000, well, that's not a very good invitation for buyers. But if you choose a list price of $750,000, well, that's a really great invitation for buyers to come see the property and likely put in an offer in hopes that they will be the ones to get the house. Pricing below the relative sales in the area is a really great way to entice buyers to jump on the opportunity. When you have multiple parties interested, they tend to compete against one another and ultimately bid up the price. And while price is super important, keep in mind there is a lot more that goes into the contract aside from price. Different terms such as closing date or post-possession or inspection timeframe and things like that. Buyers tend to get very competitive amongst each other to offer you the best deal so that their offer is selected. So of course, I know what you're thinking. The downside to this, what if you don't get any offers at this price? Isn't it a risk to price below the relative sales? Well, I would challenge you to think about that. If you're not receiving any offers below the perceived market value price, would you have gotten any offers at that aspirational price? Probably not. Understanding comparable sales, the activity in the neighborhood, the competition, buyer demand are all really important factors in pricing a home. But ultimately, understanding that list price strategy is merely an invitation to the party is the key to attracting buyers. If you choose the right list price strategy, you'll be able to take advantage of the market and get an offer with the right terms and price that you were hoping for. Check the description below to opt into our free home equity tool, and make sure to watch this video here about what factors determine the value of your house.